The Kalrathi exploration ship moved slowly through the darkness of space near the fourth planet from the sun. Commander Vexthor sat in his chair on the bridge, watching the screens that showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. His crew had been scanning this system for 3 days now, looking for valuable minerals and resources that his people could use. The humans who lived in this system were new to space travel. The Kalrathi had been watching them for almost 3 years. According to all the reports, these humans were primitive and weak. They had just figured out how to travel faster than light, which meant they were babies compared to the older races in the galaxy. Vexthor expected this mission to be boring and simple. His science officer suddenly made a sharp sound that meant surprise in her language. She looked at her screen with all 3 of her eyes wide open. Something had clearly shocked her. "Commander, I am detecting something very large near the fourth planet," she said, her voice shaking a little. "It is moving on its own power." Vexthor got up from his chair and walked over to look at her screen. What he saw made his breathing stop for a moment. There was an object in space that looked as big as a small moon. But this was not a natural moon. The surface was covered with patterns and structures that could only have been built by intelligent beings. Huge towers rose from the surface, and there were thousands of openings that looked like weapons pointed in every direction. "Run a full scan," Vexthor ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "I want to know everything about that thing." The sensors worked for several minutes, sending out waves of energy to measure and analyze the massive object. When the results came back, every member of the crew became very quiet. The thing they were looking at was not just big, it was a weapon unlike anything in the known galaxy. The computer counted over 200,000 weapon ports on the surface. There were shield generators powerful enough to protect an entire fleet of ships. The power readings suggested an energy core as strong as a small star. This was not a ship. This was a mobile fortress that could destroy entire planets. "Commander," the communications officer said quietly, "they are sending us a message." The main screen changed to show a human male. He had short brown hair and blue eyes that looked very calm. He wore a dark uniform with simple badges on the collar. Behind him, Vexthor could see a bridge that was massive, with hundreds of crew members working at their stations. "This is Captain Derek Hayes, of the United Human Space Vessel Titan," the human said. His voice was calm, but firm. "You have entered restricted space. Tell me why you are here." Vexthor felt his confidence fall away like sand through his fingers. The humans were supposed to be weak and divided. They were not supposed to have unified military forces. They were definitely not supposed to have ships like this monster. "We are a peaceful exploration vessel," Vexthor managed to say. "We are from the Kalrathi Consortium. We did not mean to intrude. We were just looking at the resources in this system." The human captain's face did not change, but something in his eyes made Vexthor feel very small and vulnerable. It was the look of someone who held all the power and knew exactly how to use it. "This system and all its resources belong to humanity under the Terran Charter," Captain Hayes said. "We would be happy to establish proper first contact with your people. However, I need to tell you something important. Right now, 47 different weapon systems are locked onto your ship. I strongly suggest you power down your weapons and let us escort you to our station near the third planet." Vexthor looked at his tactical officer, hoping this was some kind of mistake. The officer checked his instruments and then nodded slowly. The human was telling the truth. If they tried to fight or run, they would be destroyed in seconds. "We accept your terms, Captain Hayes," Vexthor said, feeling defeated. 2 smaller human ships appeared near the Kalrathi vessel. They were sleek and fast, bristling with weapons. They took positions on either side of the exploration ship and began guiding it deeper into the solar system. As they moved away from the massive construct, Vexthor could not stop looking at it. The thing the humans called the Titan slowly rotated in space, and he could see more details with every passing moment. There were docking bays large enough to hold hundreds of smaller ships. There were what looked like factories and construction facilities built right into the hull. This was not just a warship, it was a mobile city a fortress, and a factory all combined into one impossible creation. "How long have they been building this?" his science officer whispered. Vex Thor shook his head. He had no answer. The intelligence reports said nothing about this. The human species had been carefully monitored since they developed spaceflight. How had they built something this massive without anyone noticing? How many resources had it taken? How many workers? How many years? More importantly, if this was what the humans were willing to show to strangers, what other secrets were they hiding? Did they have more ships like this? Were they building weapons even more powerful? The journey to the human station took 6 hours. During that time, Vex Thor sent urgent messages back to his superiors on the Kalrathi home world. He knew this discovery would change everything. The humans were not the weak newcomers everyone thought they were. They were a major power that had been hiding their true strength. When they finally arrived at the station orbiting the third planet, Vex Thor could see it was also heavily armed. Hundreds of smaller warships moved in and out of the docking bays. Massive defense platforms floated nearby, their weapons ready to protect the planet below. Captain Hayes appeared on the screen again. "Commander Vex is Thor. Representatives from our diplomatic corps will meet with you shortly. We hope this can be the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples. But understand this clearly. Humanity will defend its territory and its interests. The Titan is just one part of our defensive capability. We suggest you share this information with your leaders." The screen went dark. Vex Thor sat back in his chair, feeling very tired. He thought about how this mission was supposed to be simple and boring. Instead, he had just disked 6 months before the Kalrathi ship arrived. Chief Engineer Laura Bennett floated in zero gravity inside one of the observation decks. She was watching workers attach the final pieces of armor plating to Section 447 of the Titan. The massive warship stretched out in front of her like a metal world, its surface covered with weapons, sensors, and thousands of other systems. "She is beautiful, is she not?" a voice said from behind her. Laura turned to see Admiral Kyle Morrison floating through the entrance. He was an older man, with gray hair and a face marked by years of military service. He had fought in the Outer Colony Wars decades ago, back when humanity was just learning to survive in space. "She is terrifying," Laura said, though her voice carried pride. "We have been working on her for 12 years. Sometimes I still cannot believe we actually built this thing." Morrison floated over to the window and looked out at the Titan. When the World Council approved Project Sentinel, half of them thought it was impossible. They wanted us to build a mobile fortress that could defend the entire solar system. A ship with enough weapons to fight off any threat. Most people said it could not be done. Laura checked the datapad in her hand. "Final systems are at 93% complete. We are still testing the main reactor, but the early results show we are doing better than we planned. The reactor is producing 18% more power than the original design called for." "What about the crew?" Morrison asked. 40,000 military personnel and 15,000 engineers and support staff, Laura answered. "We have been running training programs for 8 months. Captain Hayes says they are ready for anything." Morrison's face became serious. "They will need to be ready. Our intelligence people detected long-range scans from an unknown ship 3 weeks ago. Someone finally noticed what we are building out here." Laura felt a chill run through her body despite the warm suit she wore. The Titan had been built in complete secrecy. They chose an asteroid in the belt between planets 4 and 5 because there were so many rocks and debris fields to hide behind. Every single part had been made right here or brought in by special stealth ships. They had used satellites to jam any signals that might give away their location. The fact that someone had found them meant the secret was getting out. "How long until we are ready to fight?" Morrison asked. 2 weeks for all systems to be complete. But we can fight right now if we have to." The Admiral smiled. But there was no humor in it. "I hope we do not have to fight. But if we do, We need to show the galaxy what humans can do when we are threatened. Below them, thousands of workers in spacesuits continued their jobs. They were welding metal, testing systems, and getting the ship ready for whatever came next. The Titan was more than just a weapon. It was a statement that Earth and all the human colonies would never be helpless again. Laura thought about her daughter back on Earth. The girl was only 5 years old. She was growing up in a peaceful world that did not know about the giant warship being built in secret. Laura thought about all the children like her daughter, living safe lives because people like Morrison and Hayes were willing to prepare for the worst. "Sir, do you think we will really need this ship?" Morrison was quiet for a long time, watching the workers below. "I hope we do not, Laura. I really hope we do not. But hope is not a plan. The galaxy is huge, and we have only started to explore it. It is better to have the Titan and not need it, than to need it and not have it." An alert sounded on Laura's datapad. The main reactor had just reached stable fusion. The heart of the massive ship was now beating with power. Laura remembered the day the project started, 12 years ago. She had been a junior engineer working on colony ships. Then one day, she received a message asking if she wanted to work on something that would change human history. She said yes, without knowing what the project was. When they showed her the plans for the Titan, she almost laughed. It seemed impossible. Take an asteroid 30 kilometers across, hollow it out, fill it with weapons and engines and shields, and turn it into a mobile fortress. The amount of work seemed overwhelming, but humanity had learned to do impossible things. They had learned to survive in the harsh emptiness of space. They had learned to build colonies on dead worlds and make them livable. They had learned to travel faster than light and reach the stars. Building the Titan was just another impossible thing that humans decided to make real. The first year was spent just hollowing out the asteroid. Massive mining machines cut into the rock, removing millions of tons of material. That material was not wasted. It was refined and turned into hull plating and structural supports. The second and third years were spent building the skeleton of the ship inside the hollowed asteroid. Huge beams of reinforced metal formed the framework that would hold everything together. Years 4 through 7 were spent installing the major systems: the reactor that would power the ship, the engines that would move it through space, the life support systems that would keep 55,000 people alive, the computer networks that would control everything. Years 8 through 10 were spent adding the weapons, hundreds of thousands of them. Railguns that could fire metal slugs at incredible speeds, missile batteries with enough firepower to destroy fleets, energy weapons that could cut through the strongest armor, point defense systems to shoot down incoming attacks. Years 11 and 12 were spent on the finishing touches: the fighter bays that could launch 300 small combat ships, the shield generators that could protect the entire vessel, the sensor arrays that could detect threats from millions of kilometers away, and the main weapon, something new that human scientists had only recently figured out how to build. Now, after 12 years of constant work, the Titan was almost ready. In 2 weeks, it would be fully operational. And then, humanity would have a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Morrison looked at his own datapad and frowned. "I need to get back to command. We just received word that another unknown ship was detected on the outer edge of the system. They turned away when our patrol ships moved to intercept, but they were definitely scanning us." "They know we are here," Laura said. The Galactic Federation Council chamber was enormous. It had been built to hold representatives from 47 different species, each with their own needs for atmosphere, gravity, and space. The room fell completely silent as holographic images of the Titan rotated above the central platform. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy stared at the detailed scans showing every weapon, every system, every threatening detail of humanity's massive warship. Ambassador Helen Cross stood at the human delegation podium. She was a tall woman, with brown hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a formal suit in dark blue, the color chosen to represent Earth. Despite the tension filling the chamber, she looked calm and relaxed. She had been preparing for this moment since she accepted the job as Earth's ambassador 6 months ago. "Distinguished delegates," she began, and her voice was translated into 47 different languages simultaneously. "I understand the images you are seeing may cause concern. Please allow me to explain." A Threxian delegate rose from his seat. His body was made of living crystal that pulsed with colors, showing his emotions. Right now, those colors showed anger and fear. "Explain? You have built a weapon that could destroy entire planets. This violates every treaty about military forces that we have created over thousands of years." Helen met his gaze without looking away. "The Titan is a defensive platform built to protect our home system. It does not violate any treaties because humanity has not signed those treaties. As you all know, we only recently developed faster-than-light travel. We are not bound by agreements we were not part of creating." "That is just a trick with words," another delegate said. This one was from the Saurid Concordat, a species that looked like large reptiles. "You know what those treaties mean." "Perhaps," Helen agreed. "But let me ask you all to think about something. For the past 3 years, we have detected many ships entering our system without permission. Scout ships, survey vessels, and mining operations, all coming and going as they pleased. Some of you in this room authorized those missions." An uncomfortable murmur went through the assembly. Many delegates looked away or shifted in their seats. Helen continued. "Humanity did what any intelligent species would do when unknown neighbors show up without invitation. We prepared to defend ourselves. The Titan is not a weapon for conquest or attack. It is a deterrent to make others think twice before threatening us." A second holographic display activated, showing Admiral Kyle Morrison standing on the bridge of the Titan. He had insisted on being part of this presentation. He wanted the galaxy to see the people behind the warship, not just the weapon itself. "I am Admiral Kyle Morrison, Commander of Terran Defense Forces," he said. His voice was strong and confident. "What Ambassador Cross tells you is the truth. We built the Titan because we had no idea what we would find when we reached the stars. We found you. And while many species have been welcoming, others have shown us that the galaxy respects strength more than good intentions." A delegate from the Luminari species spoke up. The Luminari were peaceful beings, made of light and energy. Their representative's voice was gentle, but firm. "We understand your concerns, Admiral. But surely you can see how threatening such a vessel appears to civilizations that have existed for thousands of years. The Federation has maintained peace for 6,000 cycles. Your warship disrupts that balance." Helen stepped forward. "With respect, Delegate, your peace exists because the strong have agreed not to attack the weak. We are asking for a seat at that table as equals, not for permission to exist. The Titan ensures that humanity negotiates from a position of strength, not from weakness or fear." The Kalrathi ambassador stood next. He was Vex's Thor's superior, the one who had received the report about discovering the Titan. "You speak of negotiation, but you hid this weapon until now. How can we trust that you truly want peace?" Morrison answered quickly. "Because in the 6 months since we became operational, we have done nothing aggressive. We have not fired on anyone. We have not threatened anyone. We have simply protected our borders and asked that they be respected." The chamber erupted into debate. Dozens of species began arguing at once, their voices mixing into chaos. Helen let it continue for several minutes. Then she activated her priority override, a special privilege given to new species making their first official presentation to the Council. "Delegates, please," she said. And the room fell quiet again. "Humanity wants to join the Galactic Federation, but we must join as equals. We will not be junior partners who must follow rules that do not apply to everyone. We will not destroy our defenses just to make you feel comfortable. What we will do is commit to the same peaceful cooperation that forms the foundation of this council. But we will do so with the strength to ensure our voice is heard and our rights are respected." The Threxian delegate's crystalline form pulsed with colors that the translation system interpreted as resignation. You leave us little choice. We can either accept you as members, or risk conflict with a species that clearly has no fear of us. Helen allowed herself a small smile. We have fear, delegate. We have plenty of fear. But we combine that fear with preparation and strength. That is the human way. We hope you will give us a chance to prove we can be valuable allies instead of necessary enemies. The vote that followed took 3 hours. Representatives argued, made deals, and debated the implications of allowing humanity into the Federation. Some species worried about the precedent it would set. Others saw opportunity in allying with a powerful newcomer. A few saw humanity as a potential threat that needed to be controlled. In the end, the vote was close. 26 species voted yes, 19 voted no, and 2 abstained. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Federation. They would be full members in 1 year if they followed the basic rules and caused no major problems. As Helen left the chamber, she was approached by several delegates who wanted to speak privately. Some wanted to establish trade agreements. Others wanted to discuss defensive alliances. A few simply wanted to learn more about human technology and culture. Helen handled each conversation with skill and patience. But inside, she felt relief and pride. Captain Hayes and the crew of the Titan had just ensured Earth's safety for generations to come. By showing strength and restraint in equal measure, humanity had earned respect instead of fear. Later that evening, Helen sent a message back to Earth. It was a simple message that would be broadcast to every human colony and settlement. We are no longer alone in the galaxy, and we are no longer afraid. Today, humanity took its place among the stars as equals. 9 months after humanity joined the Galactic Federation, the Titan faced its first real test. Captain Derek Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as dozens of red markers moved toward the edge of the solar system. Each marker represented an enemy warship heading directly toward Earth. Can you confirm who they are? Hayes asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Nick Peterson. Peterson worked his controls quickly, analyzing the sensor data. Confirmed as Vrexian marauders. Sir, I count 37 warships of various sizes. They are broadcasting a message demanding tribute. Hayes felt a cold anger settle in his chest. The Vrexians were space pirates who operated in the lawless regions beyond Federation control. They had been getting bolder lately, raiding colonies and demanding protection money. Intelligence reports suggested they were testing human territory to see if Earth would be an easy target. Open a communication channel, Hayes ordered. The main view screen changed to show the face of the Vrexian commander. He was a massive creature with scarred skin, too many teeth, and eyes that gleamed with cruel intelligence. He looked like something from a nightmare. Human vessel. I am Warlord Krax of the Vrexian fleet, the creature said. His voice was rough and threatening. Your system now falls under our protection. You will give us refined metals, fusion cores, and advanced weapons. Refuse. And we will take what we want. By force. Hayes kept his face calm and emotionless. This is Captain Derek Hayes of the United Human Space Vessel Titan. You are violating Terran sovereign space. You have 1 hour to leave this system, or face destruction. Krax laughed. A horrible sound that echoed through the bridge. Your threats mean nothing. Human. We are 37 ships. You are only 1. No matter how big. The mathematics are simple. 60 minutes, Hayes repeated in the same calm voice. The countdown starts now. He cut the connection before Krax could respond. Around the bridge, his crew waited for orders. Their training took over despite the tension everyone felt. All hands, battle stations, Hayes commanded. Seal all compartments and bring defensive shields to maximum power. I want every weapon system online and ready to fire. Throughout the massive ship, alarms sounded. The Titan transformed from a peaceful fortress into a weapon of war. Across 40,000 crew stations, military personnel moved with practiced efficiency. In the engineering sections, Laura Bennett and her teams pushed the reactors to full combat power. In the fighter bays, pilots ran to their small combat ships and began pre-flight checks. In the Marine quarters, soldiers prepared their weapons and armor for possible boarding actions. Hayes watched the countdown timer on his display. The Vrexians made no move to leave. They were clearly convinced that their numbers would be enough to overwhelm even a ship as large as the Titan. They were about to learn why humanity had spent 12 years and countless resources building this vessel. When the timer reached 0, Hayes gave the order everyone had been waiting for. All weapons, batteries, fire at will. Launch all fighter squadrons. Show them what the Titan can do. What happened next became legendary. Stories about this battle would be told in military academies across the galaxy for decades to come. The Titan's point defense network came alive first. Thousands of small automated weapons began firing at incredible speeds. They intercepted every missile and torpedo the Vrexians launched, destroying them before they could get close enough to be dangerous. Then the main cannons fired. Each cannon was as large as a small destroyer ship. They fired in coordinated volleys, sending massive shells through space at tremendous speeds. The shells punched through Vrexian shields like they were made of paper and tore through armor plating as if it were thin metal foil. 300 human fighters launched from the Titan's bays like a swarm of angry insects. They were fast and maneuverable, with advanced reactors and weapons that gave them a huge advantage over the pirate vessels. They attacked in coordinated groups, overwhelming the Vrexian defenses. But the real shock came when Hayes activated the Titan's main weapon. It was called a gravitic disruptor, a device that human scientists had only recently figured out how to build. The theory had existed for years, but making it work required enormous amounts of power that only the Titan could provide. A beam of invisible energy lanced out across space. It caught a Vrexian cruiser directly in its path. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship began to crumple. It collapsed in on itself as the local gravity around it increased 1,000 times. In seconds, the cruiser was crushed into a ball of twisted metal, barely 20 meters across. On his view screen, Hayes saw Krax's face change from arrogance to pure terror. The warlord's eyes went wide as he watched one of his largest ships destroyed in an instant. "Wait! Stop! We surrender!" Krax screamed. "Cease fire immediately!" Hayes considered his options. He could continue the battle and destroy every Vrexian ship. It would send a clear message that attacking human space meant certain death. But he had already made his point. "All batteries cease fire," Hayes ordered. "Tactical. Lock tractor beams on all remaining hostile vessels. They are not leaving until Federation security forces arrive to take them into custody." The battle had lasted exactly 17 minutes. 5 Vrexian ships had been destroyed. 31 were captured in tractor beams, unable to move or fight back. One ship managed to escape into faster-than-light travel before the Titan could stop it. As the adrenaline began to fade, Hayes looked around his bridge. His crew had performed perfectly. Every system had worked as designed. Every person had done their job without hesitation. "Damage report," he asked. "No damage to report, sir," Peterson answered. "Their weapons never penetrated our shields. All systems are functioning normally." "No," Hayes nodded. The Titan had passed its first combat test with overwhelming success. But he knew this was just the beginning. "Send a message to Federation Command," he said. "Inform them we have 31 Vrexian vessels in custody and are requesting security forces to take possession. Also inform them that we used our gravitic disruptor weapon in combat for the first time. I am sure they will want a full report." Word of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The one Vrexian ship that escaped carried the story to every corner of known space. They told of a human warship so powerful it destroyed their fleet in minutes. They spoke of weapons that crushed ships with gravity itself. They warned others that humanity was not to be challenged. Some species heard the story and felt relief. They had chosen the right side by allying with humanity. Others heard the story and felt fear. What else could the humans do with their advanced technology? Still others heard the story and felt anger. They began planning ways to humble humanity and prove that the Titan was not invincible. But all of them understood one thing. Humanity had just announced to the galaxy that attacking human space was suicide. The Titan was not just for show. It was a weapon that would be used without hesitation to defend human interests. On Earth, the news was received with celebration. People gathered in streets and public spaces to watch recordings of the battle. They cheered as they say 1 year after the battle with the Vrexians. Ambassador Helen Cross sat in her office aboard the Titan reviewing reports from across human space. The massive warship had become much more than just a defensive platform. It had evolved into a symbol of humanity's strength and a center for diplomatic activity. A soft chime announced a visitor. Admiral Kyle Morrison entered, looking tired but satisfied. He carried a datapad filled with information. "Helen, good to see you," Morrison said as he took a seat. "I wanted to brief you on the latest developments with the Federation Council." Helen put down her own work and gave him her full attention. "Please tell me it is good news. I could use some after dealing with the sordid trade complaints all morning." Morrison smiled. "The Concordat Treaty has been ratified. 12 species have signed mutual defense agreements with humanity. Every single one of them mentioned the Titan as the reason they feel confident standing up to Vrexian expansion and other threats." Helen raised an eyebrow. "So, we have become the protector of the neighborhood? More like the strong friend everyone wants on their side," Morrison corrected. 3 more species have requested permission to visit our shipyards. They want to learn our construction techniques and see how we build things. "Are we going to share our technology with them?" Morrison nodded slowly. "Selectively. We will not give away anything that compromises the Titan's unique capabilities. But we can share enough to build goodwill and strengthen our alliances." Captain Hayes even suggested we could host joint training exercises. It would show the galaxy we are serious about cooperation. Helen leaned back in her chair, thinking about how much had changed in just 1 year. "You know, when we started building the Titan, I wondered if we were making a terrible mistake. Creating a weapon that massive seemed like we were asking for trouble. And now I understand, it is not really about the weapon itself. It is about what the weapon represents. It shows humanity refusing to be victims. Refusing to beg others for protection. We came to the stars on our own terms. And the Titan makes sure we can stay that way." Morrison nodded in agreement. "The galaxy respects strength above almost everything else. We have proven we have that strength. But more importantly, we have shown restraint. We could have turned the Titan into a tool for conquest and expansion. Instead, we use it to defend ourselves and our allies. That is what has changed how others see us." A priority alert flashed on Helen's console. She opened it and read the message, then smiled broadly. "What is it?" Morrison asked with curiosity. "An invitation from the Luminari. They want to host a cultural exchange program on their home world. They specifically requested that Captain Hayes attend as humanity's official representative." Morrison laughed with genuine amusement. From feared outsiders to honored guests in less than 2 years. That is quite an achievement. Helen stood and walked to the large viewport that looked out over the Titan's vast hull. Work crews were still making constant improvements, adding new systems and making existing ones better. The ship that was supposed to be humanity's ultimate weapon had become something more. It was a mobile home for thousands of people, a deterrent against aggression, and a promise that Earth and her colonies would always have protection. "Do you think we will build more ships like this?" she asked. Morrison joined her at the viewport. "The World Council has approved preliminary designs for 2 more Titangent-class vessels. But honestly, I do not think we will need them anytime soon. One was enough to change everything. Building more would just be showing off. And humanity does not show off? Not when we do not have to." That is another lesson we have taught the galaxy. We build what we need. Nothing more and nothing less. The Titan was necessary when we did not know what dangers existed out here. Now that we understand the situation better, we can focus on exploration, trade, and diplomacy. We know we have the strength to support our words with action if needed. The conversation was interrupted by another message. This one was from the Calrathi Consortium. They were formally requesting to establish an embassy on the Titan itself. They wanted their diplomats to be close to the center of human power. The Calrathi were the first to discover us, Helen noted. Commander Vexthor must have given them quite a report. He did, Morrison confirmed. I read the intelligence summary. He described the Titan as the most intimidating thing he had ever seen. He recommended his government pursue friendly relations with humanity at all costs. Smart advice. Far below in the command center, Captain Hayes was concluding his duty shift. He reviewed reports from the sensor network that now extended throughout the solar system and beyond. The Titan had become the hub of an early warning system that protected not just humanity but all of their allies as well. He thought about the journey that had brought him to this position. He started as a fighter pilot flying atmospheric craft on Earth. Then he moved to space fighters during the Outer Colony Wars. He worked his way up through the ranks, always pushing himself to be better. When they offered him command of the Titan, he almost refused. The responsibility seemed too great, but now, after everything they had accomplished, he understood why they chose him. They needed someone who understood both combat and diplomacy. Someone who could fight when necessary, but would prefer peace. Someone who could command the respect of 55,000 crew members and represent humanity to the galaxy at the same time. A message arrived from Laura Bennett, now serving as Chief of Starship Development for all of human space. She sent him specifications for a new class of vessels designed for long-range exploration rather than combat. They would carry the best of human technology to the farthest reaches of known space, and the Titan would ensure they always had a safe home to return to. Hayes approved the designs and sent a congratulatory message to Laura. She had come a long way from the young engineer who helped build the Titan. Now she was designing the ships that would carry humanity to new worlds. Another report caught his attention. The Vrexian warlord Krax had been put on trial by the Federation. He faced charges of piracy, extortion, and threatening member species. The trial was being broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to others who might think about attacking peaceful civilizations. During his testimony, Krax spoke about the battle with the Titan. He described it as the most one-sided fight he had ever experienced. He warned that trying to fight humanity was suicide unless you had overwhelming force and better technology. His words carried weight because everyone knew the Vrexians were experienced fighters who had terrorized the galaxy for decades. If they said humanity was too strong to challenge, others would listen. Hayes received a message from Federation Command commending him for his handling of the Vrexian incident. They noted that his restraint in not destroying all the pirate ships had demonstrated humanity's commitment to justice rather than revenge. It had earned respect from many species who had been uncertain about human intentions. The door to the command center opened, and Lieutenant Commander Nick Peterson entered. He had become Hayes's most trusted tactical officer during their time together. Sir, I wanted to inform you that the joint training exercise with the Luminari fleet is scheduled for next month. They are sending 12 ships to participate. Hayes nodded. Good. Make sure our people understand, this is about building cooperation, not showing off. We want them to see us as reliable partners. Understood, sir. After Peterson left, Hayes stood and walked to the main viewport. From here, he could see Earth in the distance, a beautiful blue and green sphere floating in the darkness. That world held 10 billion people who were counting on the Titan to keep them safe. 2 years after the Vrexian incident, the galaxy had settled into a new pattern. Humanity was no longer the mysterious newcomer with a terrifying secret weapon. They were now an established power with growing influence and a reputation for both strength and fairness. Captain Derek Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Titan, watching a formation of ships from 6 different species conduct joint training maneuvers nearby. The exercises had become a regular event, with more species requesting to participate each time. It was a far cry from the early days, when everyone feared and distrusted the massive warship. "Quite a sight, is it not?" Ambassador Helen Cross said as she joined him at the viewport. Hayes nodded without taking his eyes off the formation. 2 years ago, most of these species wanted us to dismantle the Titan. Now, they are lining up to train with us and learn from us. It is remarkable how quickly things can change. Helen smiled. Fear becomes respect when it is combined with restraint. We showed them we had the power to destroy, but we chose to protect instead. That made all the difference. A young ensign approached and saluted. "Sir, Admiral Morrison sends his compliments and asks if you can join him in the command center. We have received an interesting proposal from the Federation Council." Hayes and Helen exchanged glances before following the ensign. The command center was busy as always, with hundreds of crew members monitoring systems and communications from across the sector. Admiral Morrison stood at the central holographic display, studying what appeared to be star charts. "Admiral, you wanted to see us?" Hayes asked. Morrison looked up and gestured to the display. "The Federation Council has made a formal request. They want the Titan to serve as the flagship for a new joint task force. The mission would be to patrol the border regions and respond to threats against any member species." Helen frowned slightly. "That is a significant responsibility. It would effectively make us the military arm of the Federation." "Not quite," Morrison corrected. "We would be one part of a larger force. But yes, they are asking us to take a leadership role. The question is whether we should accept." Hayes studied the star charts, noting the areas that would fall under the task force's protection. They were mostly frontier regions, where piracy and territorial disputes were common. It would be dangerous work, but it would also strengthen humanity's position in the galactic community. "What does Earth think about this?" Hayes asked. "The World Council is divided," Morrison admitted. "Some see it as an opportunity to cement our status as a major power. Others worry it will drag us into conflicts that do not concern us directly. They are leaving the decision to us, to the people who actually operate the Titan." Helen walked around the holographic display, thinking carefully. "If we refuse, the Federation will see it as us being unwilling to contribute to collective security. That could damage our relationships. But if we accept, we are committing our most powerful asset to operations that could last years. There is another consideration," Morrison added. "If we do not take this role, someone else will. And that someone might not share our values about protecting the innocent and avoiding unnecessary violence." Hayes understood immediately. The Titan had become more than just a weapon. It had become a symbol of how power should be used. If they stepped back now, that symbol would be lost. "I think we should accept," Hayes said quietly. "But with conditions. We participate as equals, not subordinates. We maintain full authority over the Titan and her operations, and we reserve the right to refuse missions that conflict with our values or interests." Morrison smiled. "I was hoping you would say that. Those are exactly the conditions I plan to propose." Over the next 3 months, the Joint Task Force was assembled. The Titan served as the command vessel, but she was supported by ships from 12 different species. It was the most diverse military force ever created in the galaxy's history. The task force's first mission came quickly. A coalition of pirate groups had begun raiding colonies in the Outer Rim, taking advantage of the lack of strong defenses. The attacks were becoming bolder and more frequent. Hayes assembled the task force commanders for a planning session. They gathered in the Titan's main conference room, a space designed to accommodate different species with different needs. "The pirates are operating from a hidden base somewhere in the Tarnus Nebula," Hayes explained, pointing to the star chart. "They hit their targets fast and then disappear into the nebula, where sensors cannot track them effectively. A Luminari commander spoke up. Her people were beings of light and energy, who communicated through a translation device. The nebula is huge. Finding their base could take months of searching. Unless we make them come to us, suggested a Kalrathi officer, we could set a trap. Hayes nodded. Exactly what I was thinking. We stage a convoy carrying valuable cargo through one of their favorite hunting grounds. When they attack, we are ready with overwhelming force. We capture as many as possible and force them to reveal the location of their base. The plan was approved and put into action 2 weeks later. The Titan and most of the task force hid behind a nearby moon, while a small group of cargo ships moved through the target area. The ships were actually heavily armed warships, disguised to look like easy prey. The pirates took the bait. 23 raider ships emerged from faster-than-light travel and surrounded the convoy, demanding surrender. That was when the Titan and her task force appeared. The battle was brief and decisive. The pirates, caught completely by surprise, had no chance to escape. 19 ships were captured intact, and only 4 managed to flee. More importantly, the captured crews quickly revealed the location of their main base when they realized they faced decades in Federation prisons. The task force moved on the pirate base immediately. It was hidden inside a massive asteroid in the Tarnus Nebula. Just as suspected, the base was heavily fortified, but nothing could stand against the combined firepower of the task force. Hayes gave the pirates one chance to surrender peacefully. Most did, not wanting to face the Titan's weapons. A few tried to fight and were quickly defeated. By the end of the day, the largest pirate operation in the sector had been completely dismantled. News of the success spread quickly. The joint task force had accomplished in weeks what individual species had failed to do for years. It proved that cooperation and combined strength could solve problems that seemed impossible. Back on the Titan, Hayes met with his senior officers to discuss the mission's outcome. Laura Bennett had come aboard to inspect some new systems, and she joined the meeting. The Federation Council is very pleased, Helen reported. They are already talking about expanding the task force and taking on more missions. We should be careful not to overextend ourselves, Laura cautioned. The Titan is powerful, but she is not invincible. Taking on too many missions could leave us vulnerable. Hayes agreed. We need to be selective about which missions we accept. Our primary responsibility is still defending Earth and human colonies. Everything else is secondary. Morrison pulled up a report on his datapad. I have some interesting news about the Vrexians. After Krax's defeat and trial, their entire confederation fractured. Most of the warlords are fighting each other now, instead of raiding others. Intelligence suggests the Vrexian threat has been largely neutralized. One less problem to worry about, Helen said with satisfaction. The months that followed saw the task force tackle several more missions. They broke up smuggling rings, mediated territorial disputes, and rescued colonists from natural disasters. Each success strengthened the bonds between the participating species and reinforced humanity's reputation as reliable and capable leaders. But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. The Threxian delegate who had opposed humanity's Federation membership requested a private meeting with Helen. When they met, he surprised her with an apology. I was wrong about your people, he admitted, his crystalline form pulsing with what the translation system identified as embarrassment. I thought the Titan was a threat to peace. I did not understand that it was a guarantee of peace. Your restraint and wisdom have proven more valuable than your weapons. Helen accepted the apology graciously. We all make judgments based on incomplete information. What matters is that we learn from our mistakes and move forward together. The Threxian became one of humanity's strongest supporters after that conversation. He helped persuade other cautious species to support human initiatives and defended human actions when others questioned them. 3 years after the Titan was revealed to the galaxy, humanity's position was stronger than anyone could have imagined. They had proven themselves in combat and diplomacy. They had formed lasting alliances and earned genuine respect. The industrial project that started as a desperate defensive measure had become the foundation of a new order in the galaxy. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of the Titan, looking out at the stars. He thought about how far they had come and how much further they could go. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders and dangers, but humanity was ready for whatever came next. The Titan floated in space, no longer just a weapon but a home and a symbol. She represented humanity's determination to survive, to thrive, and to help others do the same. The age of human expansion among the stars was in full swing, and nothing would stop it now. Hayes smiled as he watched a group of human children on a tour of the bridge. They represented the future, a generation that would grow up among the stars, confident in humanity's place in the galaxy. The industrial project had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. It had not just protected humanity. It had transformed them into leaders, teachers, and protectors of others. And that was a legacy worth all the years of secret work and sacrifice. The new order in the galaxy had humanity at its center, and the Titan ensured it would stay that way. But Earth was not the only world depending on them now. Human colonies on 6 different planets looked to the Titan for protection. Allied species throughout the sector relied on humanity's strength to deter aggression from hostile forces. The responsibility was enormous. But Hayes knew his crew was ready for it. They had trained for years. They had proven themselves in combat. They understood that their purpose was not conquest, but protection. The Titan floated in space, a planet-sized reminder that Earth's children had claimed their place among the stars. Humanity had built something that changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They had done it in secret, revealing it only when they were ready. Now, 1 year after that revelation, they were using their strength to build a better future. They were forming alliances, sharing knowledge carefully, and showing the galaxy that humans valued cooperation as much as they valued strength. The age of human expansion among the stars was truly underway, and the Titan stood ready to protect that expansion from anyone foolish enough to threaten it. The Titan defend their homeworld against a force that outnumbered it almost 40-1. For the first time since reaching the stars, humans felt truly safe. They had the strength to defend themselves against any threat. The age of being vulnerable newcomers was over. Captain Hayes stood at the window of his ready room, looking out at the stars. He thought about what this battle meant for the future. Other enemies would come, seeking to test human resolve or looking for revenge. The Titan and her crew would need to be ready for whatever came next. But for now, they had proven themselves. They had shown the galaxy that humanity's industrial project was not just an impressive engineering achievement. It was a weapon that would protect Earth and all her colonies from those who wished them harm. The Titan floated in space, her weapons still warm from battle, her shields still glowing with power. Inside, 55,000 people stood ready to defend humanity against all threats. The message was clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars, and it would defend that place with overwhelming force. On the Titan, Captain Hayes received word of the successful vote. He gathered his senior officers to share the news. The massive warship had done its job without firing a single shot. It had changed the equation simply by existing. "We showed them who we are," Hayes said to his crew. "We showed them that humans are not victims or easy targets. We are builders and defenders. We are a species that will stand up for ourselves and our allies." The Titan made that possible. Around the galaxy, news of the vote spread quickly. Some species celebrated, seeing humanity as potential allies against common threats. Others worried about what it meant for the future balance of power. A few began making plans to test human resolve and see if the Titan was as powerful as the scans suggested. But all of them understood one thing clearly. Humanity had changed the rules of the game. They had built a planet-sized warship in secret and revealed it to the galaxy as a statement of intent. They would not be pushed around or ignored. They would defend their interests with overwhelming force if necessary. The age of humanity as a minor species was over. The age of humanity as a galactic power had begun. And it all started with one impossible project that everyone said could not be done. The Titan floated in space near Earth, a silent guardian watching over humanity's home world and all its scattered colonies. Inside, 55,000 people lived and worked, ready to defend their species at a moment's notice. The galaxy would remember this day for a very long time. Yes. And soon, everyone will know. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. After Morrison left, Laura stayed at the window for a long time, looking at the Titan. She thought about all the people who had worked on this project. Engineers, scientists, construction workers, military personnel, tens of thousands of people, keeping the biggest secret in human history. She thought about why they built it. Not to conquer or to threaten, but to protect. To make sure that when humanity met other species among the stars, they would meet as equals, not as victims. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not easy prey. They were builders and fighters. They were a species that would do whatever was necessary to protect their home and their people. The countdown to operational status continued. In 2 weeks, the Titan would be ready, and the galaxy would never be the same. Over that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone in the galaxy had imagined. The other races needed to know about this immediately. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and nobody had seen it coming. The humans had built a planet-sized warship in complete secrecy, and now they were announcing their presence to the galaxy with overwhelming force. Vex Thor wondered how the Galactic Federation would respond to this news. He wondered if anyone would try to force the humans to destroy their massive ship. He wondered if war was coming. But most of all, he wondered what other surprises humanity had waiting for the galaxy to discover.